Hello everyone. We've decided to make a video about choosing a new country. We've obviously been living in Thailand for a while now, and a lot of people are curious as to why we're leaving and where we're looking at next, and so we're going to make a dedicated video about it.
So one of the first things that we discussed when we started looking at leaving Thailand and moving to another country is whether or not we can actually afford to move, and it's very important for us to not be living above our means.
Up until about 1 year ago, we could only look at countries in Southeast Asia, but now that our earnings have increased a little bit, we have now opened doors into certain countries in Europe. So that is why we are looking east and west now. When we first arrived in Thailand, we only had one source of income, which was our stock photography, but now we also have our blog, we have Patreon, and we have our YouTube channel, which has become a source of income.
New doors have opened for us.
Indeed.
Another big issue for us when thinking about where we want to live next is issues like visas. Every year that we've been in Thailand, the visa situation has got a little bit more difficult, and we feel that now it has got quite tough to get a comfortable visa in Thailand unless you're just here as a tourist.
The business visa that we used to use is now no longer viable for us to get, and so we don't really want to base our whole future on tourist visas because we don't feel like tourists anymore, and we want to move beyond that.
And having to do visa runs every 90 days and never really knowing what's going to happen at the border, it's kind of, I don't really want that forever.
You can't ever think about putting down roots in a situation like that, which is why we are now looking at perhaps moving to a country where the visas are easier or we don't need visas at all.
Yeah. Another big factor that has become bigger since we've been away is being closer to family and the distance that we have to travel to get back home if we need to, and the cost of that said travel.
And also my parents are getting older, everybody is moving on, and so we like to be able to jump in and jump out of their lives faster and with greater ease than what we currently have now. And so that is now a factor that we're thinking about that we weren't perhaps thinking when we first moved here 4 years ago.
A topic that crops up quite a lot, especially when talking to family, is when we say going home, it's not necessarily us talking about going home to our hometown that we were born in and grew up in, because home for us now has taken on a different meaning.
I think home is a feeling rather than an actual place now. Sometimes just having Eden in a hotel with us can make it feel homely, and we feel nice in that particular area. Sometimes it feels like home for a specific amount of time, and so now that we have the option to go to more countries and possibly make that our home, we want to feel comfortable there.
We want to get that nice feeling of you belong somewhere and it just feels right.
And here in Thailand, the complicated visa issues have made Thailand feel less like home for us now, which is why we're considering other places.
And like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Da, da, da.
Pet ownership. We obviously need to think about pet ownership because we have this beautiful dog, Eden, and we want to have more dogs in the future.
Yes.
And buying or rehoming a dog out here when we perhaps won't be staying here isn't really a viable option for us anymore.
Maybe some people wouldn't even consider it as a issue. I always want to have a dog. I love having dogs, and that's a passion of mine. I want to be living somewhere where it's easy to be able to keep dogs and have a pet in my life.
One of the reasons why we're looking at moving into Europe is because the pet import and export issues will be a lot easier for us. We'll be able to drive most places, and Eden's little pet passport will be a lot simpler than what we have to do every time we need to move Eden from perhaps Southeast Asia back to England with all the rabies tests and with quarantine. We don't really want to do that with multiple dogs, and so it's a factor in our choosing a new country how dogs fit into that, basically.
Yes. Also, Eden is now 11 years old. Where we take her next will be her last
flight.
So I don't really want to be putting Eden on 12-hour flights. It's to be fair to Eden, really. We should be somewhere that she can go on lots more road trips.
We've also been thinking more and more about our long-term plan. You may have heard recently in Sasha's birthday video that we are both almost 32 years old, and that means we want
I am 32.
Yeah, and I will be this year. So we want to talk more about our long-term plans, buying a house, you know, more pets, like we said, perhaps having kids in the future, and all of those things are going to play a huge role in where we want to stay long-term. If we decided to stay in Thailand for another 3 to 5 years, all of those things would have to happen here, and all the problems that go along with it would have to happen here.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about that. Same, if we move to the Philippines, it would be similar to Thailand in certain ways. And if we move to Europe, it may be easier. So it's a factor that is important, and it's something that we are thinking about a lot at our age.
Even though taking Eden to the Philippines would actually be much easier than taking her to Europe.
She just needs a certificate for rabies, and then she can get on a short flight, and then she could come with us there to the Philippines. So it's not out of the question of us moving into Southeast Asia again, but we have to think about the long-term plan. And being there, if we did go to the Philippines, we'd have to stay for at least 2 years, in our opinion.
Yeah.
And that is factoring into all the other long-term plan things that we've been talking about.
Go on then. Oh. Another consideration that we have made is the weather. We like to be outside and we like to be warm. It's just nice to be able to wake up and know that it's going to be a little bit summery outside.
One thing I have liked about living here in Thailand is not having to check the weather before we do anything outdoors. It's pretty much always going to be warm at least, and if it does rain, it won't rain for very long.
Yeah.
And so that's something I have enjoyed about being out here. So when we choose our next country, we want the winters to be short and the summers to be long, but perhaps not as consistently hot as it is here all the time. So
Yeah, Thailand is very hot, and it's hot or it's hotter. And sweaty and humid.
We
So-
don't have a proper winter here, and sometimes that can be missed, funnily
Yeah.
enough. Even though we don't like the cold, we like to have a small period of cold and then go back to the summer.
Do you know what I miss? Those really nice, freezing cold, crisp mornings with bright blue skies.
Yeah, you don't get that here.
Yeah, I liked that. Or
Yeah.
when you walk on the grass and it crisps under your feet, that's really
Frost.
nice. Frost, yes.
Frost,
frosty.
snow. Maybe not snow, but it's nice to experience once in a
Yeah,
while.
exactly. So yeah, we miss seasons.
Yeah, seasons are important,
Yeah.
like the 4 seasons.
Not the hotel.
Not the hotel. Wherever we go next, we obviously have to be able to drive. We need to be in a country where driving isn't a hassle or isn't a problem for us, because driving has played a huge part in our life, and also for moving around. Eden, the dog, she has always been in the car with us, so the type of car that we buy and use is going to have to change over the years, because we want something that can go further and go for longer and perhaps be a bit more reliable. The cost of fuel will obviously go up if we move to the west, but saying that, there was a year here in Thailand when the fuel cost was exactly the same here in Thailand as it was in England.
It was last year, wasn't it?
It was about a year and a half ago. It was about £1 a litre here and £1 a litre in England. So we've had a few shocking times when it comes to petrol and fuels out here too.
But then LPG cars are less common in England and Europe.
That is true, but you can still get them. And also we are thinking about perhaps getting a diesel car, because in Europe diesel is cheaper than petrol, so we could go further for less money and see more.
So as you all know, we love a landscape and a view, and just being able to go out and have a nice walk and see something beautiful.
We always like the idea of going and buying ourselves a nice picnic and then going on a mountain walk and sitting down and just looking at a view all alone and having that together. Those kind of thoughts come into my head when I think about where I want to move to. So being able to sit outside without being burnt by the sun too much or being too cold is something that we're thinking about and something we're dreaming about. Lovely picnics and lovely long walks with Eden the dog.
Yeah. When we lived in Chiang Rai, I loved where we lived in the farm, and just every window of our house just had a mountain view and banana trees and just lovely countryside views, and it was so peaceful, and it just made you feel good every morning when you woke up and looked out and saw something pretty and great sunsets from your kitchen. That plays a factor. I want to be able to see nice things.
Yes. Obviously, when you move to a new country, a lot of things will change, and in our videos we intend to address the day-to-day issues wherever we go. You know, even the simple things like where do you put your rubbish? Do they do recycling? People have found that very interesting since we've moved to different places around the country and the way things work. So we're obviously going to be covering those mundane to some people issues, but we also want to go and explore everything about the country.
I feel we have covered a huge amount of Thailand in our nearly 4 years of living here. We've lived in 5 different places. So yeah, we want to go and explore another country extensively.
Saying that though, we also have talked about slowing down and spending more time in one place for a longer period of time. Yeah. Having lived here for 4 years and been living in 4 different regions entirely has been tough because you can't make a solid group of friends. Yeah,
that's one of the scariest things about thinking about moving somewhere else entirely, because we're kind of starting again. Like now we got our car, we know where to do the shopping, we know where this is and that is, and we know where our favourite coffee shop is and our favourite restaurant and that kind of thing. We know where to walk Eden.
We've done that 4 times now here.
Well, we've lived in 5 different houses, but 4 different regions but
across the country.
Yeah, going into the unknown in another country is scary. One final thing we want to address in this video is one of the comments we received about us and about us moving country, stating that all we want is somewhere cheap and that's all we're interested in. We're not interested in the culture or what country. All we care about is it being cheap.
The fact of the matter is, it's simply not true. The first thing that we have to consider when we move country is the cost, like we said at the beginning of this, and then everything else comes after that. Just because we didn't say everything that we intended to say in that one particular segment of one particular daily vlog doesn't mean that we're not thinking about the things that we're going to see there, the people we're going to encounter, and what we can do for the country in return for being there and enjoying the economic climate that we are going to be moving into.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we do when we start looking at a new country is we start looking at images of it to see what it looks like, what the beautiful landscapes are, what the food looks like, you know, the kind of things that we're going to experience when we get there. All of that plays a factor when we start looking, but it's pointless looking into a country that we can't afford, so we have to begin there. And if that message came across in the wrong way, then you've misunderstood us in general.
There are many places in Europe that are cheaper than what is currently top of our list, which is Portugal at the moment. There are many Eastern Europe places such as Poland, Bulgaria, Hungary, and yes, we have considered them, but Portugal is still a top runner for the reasons that we've just said, the weather, the climate, the cost,
pets,
the culture, the people. It all factors in. It's not just a place of Bulgaria is cheaper than Portugal, let's go there. It's not that straightforward.
Yes, so please don't misunderstand us when we don't say everything in one go in a daily vlog. So to satisfy any curious minds, the 2 main countries that are factoring onto our list right now of where to move in a few months' time are going to be the Philippines and Portugal.
Yes.
Both P's.
And both completely different.
Yes, we're looking in those directions, and the decision will be made probably in the next month or so because of Eden.
But the more research we do, that may change. Portugal and the Philippines may change, and we may throw another country into the mix just to make it more confusing and exciting.
We will be doing a video like this at least once a month to address any comments that come up or frequently asked questions, or it might just be a general Q&A, but mainly the reason for this is to respond to what people are saying and asking us, because we want to show you that we are reading them, the comments, and we are interacting with you in our own way, which will be like this. Hopefully that's answered some of your questions. If not, leave a comment below, and it's easier for us to find it if you put the hashtag #Ask8miles after it, so we can see that you specifically wanted us to kind of address it, and if enough people ask the same things, it might end up in the next video.
Yes, in our next Q&A.
Hopefully you enjoyed watching this, we enjoyed making it, and hopefully it's explained some things, and we will see you next time. Bye.